20 years ago, it is very different. After the June 4th crisis, the formation of this organization and been very much focused on building a very constructive dialogue and bridging between U.S. and China and the understanding not only of the government but the people's side. 20 years have gone by. We obviously are the most interdependent relationship in the world, and the next 20 years is going to be full of opportunities and challenges. I think there are obviously the economic interdependency, whether China is the biggest debt holder of the United States, or the China growth, as everybody talk about, and I'm sure our distinguished panelists sometime today will discuss that. And of course, the trade volume had gone about 20 times, maybe. 20 years ago, it was U.S.-China trade is roughly about $25 billion. We crossed the $500 billion mark last year. So this is one of the most important interdependent relationships. But it's also a relationship that puts the Americans' policy in a big test. We have a quote-unquote a to-be superpower coming onto the world scene, and everybody in this room knows that. I hope you do know, and if you want to debate that, we'd love to talk about that. The world is going to be better off when U.S. and China are friends rather than enemies. But there are a lot of points of interaction that could go the wrong way. We are President Obama in the State of the Union talk about the Sputnik movement regarding the Chinese economy and the China progressions, and that is a call to action for the Americans, and we obviously have a lot to do here. The last thing is about opportunistically why this conference is important, and it changes a little bit in dimension. If you're here 20 years ago, we'll be talking about U.S.-China policy, cross-trade relations. Today's conference and the way that our conference chair laid out the program and the topic that we're going to discuss are much broader than just that. There are the economic, there are the policy, there are the socialistic, there are the development, there is sustainability, and I'm sure the conversation has taken us in many different directions. But this is how interdependent there is. And we also have very distinguished keynoters that are going to come through today. One is, actually, I'd like to call your attention to the reflection, I believe is called it, of Secretary Gary Locke. I hope soon to be Ambassador Gary Locke. He's going to talk, and he's a former C-100 member. We lost him to President Obama. We're still talking about that inside, about how to retaliate, but I have too many Democrats friends in the committee, so. Okay, without further ado, let me first introduce you the co-chair. And please, the co-chair, please stand up. Clarence, Lulu, and James Lee, the three co-chair. Every time I call the three of them, Clarence has also always disappeared. I don't know why. But thank you. It's really, really wonderful to be here, and thank you for all the hard work. And now I'd like to give you a very brief introduction of the lead sponsor of our conference. One actually share a lot of common visions of C-100. And just summarize the C-100 missions. Like, we have a dual mission. We want to better the relations of U.S.-China. And we also want to promote the Chinese-American integration and participation in the mainstream American society. Those two interlink, overlapped, and we're going to talk through a lot about the programs. But the one very, very steadfast past partners of ours has been Bank of America. They have not only been focusing and sponsoring all our events, getting our members together. In fact, in San Francisco, they help us that too, and give us opportunity to exchange ideas with various groups. But more importantly, they also step up to every of the philanthropy activities that we have, including we're very grateful that one of the lead donors for our Sichuan Earthquake Relief Fund. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you Keith Bang, the president of the U.S. Trust, which is the trust arms of Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, U.S. Trust, Freak Bank, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here. Well, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here today representing my colleagues at U.S. Trust, Merrill Lynch, and Bank of America. All our colleagues serve clients all around the world, clients and companies, and certainly have a big and important presence in China. It's incredibly important for all of us to understand the relationship and dynamics between emerging and developed markets in general and the U.S. and China in particular. The leadership of our partners at the Committee of 100 enable us to engage more deeply in this important dialogue, and I thank them for this opportunity. It is a privilege, and I mean that truly, a privilege for Bank of America to sponsor this year's milestone, 20 years, what a wonderful accomplishment, conference. And I applaud John, Lulu, and countless others who make a day like this possible for all of us. And I'm sure it's going to be a great experience. So thank you for joining all of us, and thank you for joining Bank of America in our sponsorship of the Committee of 100. I hope you have a tremendous day and enjoy the gala this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Keith. It's been a great pleasure working with Bank of America. We make great partners, and we share our passion for U.S.-China issues. Now, we will start with our Roundtable 1, and we have a very interesting roundtable. As you know, Committee 100 is very dedicated to facilitating cooperation, understanding between U.S. and China. So the very first roundtable will explore an issue that is of great interest, sometimes very thorny, in U.S.-China relations, and that is cross-border trade. And so we've called it Forging New Markets, Linking Up, or Doing It Alone. We are very pleased to have our roundtable moderated by Steve Roach, who many of you know. He was probably the most respected U.S.-China scholar and researcher on Wall Street at Morgan Stanley, and he knows all the issues, and the good ones and the bad ones. So we look forward to Steve's moderation. He will be joined by three other participants. Dominic Ng, who is the CEO and chairman of East West Bank and our incoming chair of Committee 100. Dominic was very kind to step in. Originally, we had Charlie Barshevsky on the roundtable to speak to international trade. She unfortunately had a death in the family and could not join us. But we look forward to Dominic's contribution to the discussion. And he will be joined by two outstanding leaders of companies, one based in the U.S. and expanding into China, and that is Lou Frankfurt, the very charismatic CEO of Coach Industries. And he will talk about the opportunities, but also the challenges of breaking into China and doing it very organically. And then we are most pleased to be joined by Ping Ni, who is the president of Wangshan American Corporation. And we all know that when President Hu was in the States recently, he made a special trip to Chicago to visit Wangshan and see how well they're doing. They are a Chinese-owned company, but the largest automotive parts manufacturer in the U.S. So doing very well in the U.S., but still a Chinese-owned company. So I welcome Steve and the participants to Roundtable 1. Thank you.
Why don't I just start here, and then I'll sit down and join the illustrious panel here. First, I just want to thank Lulu for her warm welcome, and let me embarrass her by saying that I really don't know of anyone who has worked more tirelessly over the years in trying to improve U.S.-China relations. So it's really a pleasure to work with you on this program as well, Lulu.